CanHammer is a gaming podcast from the Great White North. See canhammer.ca for more info.
Good evening and welcome to CanHammer, your stop for Warhammer 40k from the Great White North. Today's show is episode 135, and what we're going to talk about today is we're going to go over a recent Warzone Montreal, the top few lists. We're also going to cover just some of the things that we're expecting with the upcoming GW FAQ, as well as plug some events. As usual, I am your host, Chris, and I am joined by my co-host,
Darren.
And our special guest for the evening, joining us live from Syracuse, New York, Mr.
Brian Horton.
Welcome to the podcast, Brian. How's it going?
Going well, thank you.
So we were talking a little bit earlier, and I'm glad to hear that you are not a Buffalo fan, Buffalo Bills.
That is for sure. I'm a Jets fan at heart.
Because they just got destroyed. For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, American football. And I was kind of hoping that Brian was a Bills fan so I could razz him all night, but I guess I can't. So
yeah, he posted this cartoon of the Buffalo Bill. I guess it's the Buffalo. I don't know, getting stabbed. So,
it's more of a do something because they didn't do anything the entire game. It was rather hilarious.
Yeah, it was one of the worst things ever. It was basically like playing a castle at night, right? You just can't do anything and they kill you. So Brian's never been on the podcast, so I guess we'll start off. We'll introduce you, so let the people know a little bit about you. So if you can maybe talk about how you got into the hobby and maybe what you do, what armies you're currently playing, and whether or not you're a hobbyist, a gamer, or a fluff bunny.
All right. Well, I'm Brian Horton. A lot of people know me as Legion Brian Horton. I'm the president of the 13th Legion Gaming Club, the largest gaming club in upstate New York. We have chapters in Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse. We roughly got over 500 members right now.
Wow.
I've been in gaming since I was a very young child, so I've been playing Warhammer in some form or another for going on 30 years. Been around the hobby for a long time. I'm much more of a hobbyist than a player these days because I end up running most of our events. I get to see all the stuff that's going on and deal with all the issues that arise over events. I run Boyz GT. I've helped organize our Apocalypse game at Adepticon, which unfortunately we won't be doing this year due to scheduling conflicts.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, it was fun, but I think we're actually going to try and do the teams event this year. I might buckle down and do some hobbying and make up a big display board, but we're working on that at the moment. Along with that, I run about 20-ish events around at local stores throughout the year. I'm feverishly right now building new terrain for Boyz GT, trying to improve and add to some tables and adding, I want to say 8 new tables right now I've got on the docket.
Nice.
From AdMech table. I've just finished putting a bunch of terrain together from Mantic and getting painted up 2 or 3 tables. One of the tables, if you were at the Beef and Wing Brawl in Buffalo, you got to see that one, which I know Chris was at.
Yeah. Oh, which one was that one?
That was the gray rusted factory board.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think I have either 2 or 3 of those total done now, so in different layouts for all of them. So, and I just finished assembling and priming up one of the AdMech boards, and one of our other guys is doing an entire table with the Kill Team style terrain.
Oh, sweet.
So, yeah,
so if you're I was going to say, if you're going to play in the Adepticon team, take it back a step, because it sounds like you're a heavy terrain guy. What army do you think would best, or are you thinking about playing, or what army best complements maybe like an extreme board in your opinion?
We're really thinking about doing an invasion type thing where we're going to have the Tyranids coming into the city, into the IG defense line, with the Gene Stealer cult rising up inside the city, with Death Watch dropping in.
Oh, cool.
That's the generic idea we have at the moment. You think it'd be very
so generic.
cinema.
Yeah, it's just about as generic as 3 Craft World armies and a Yannari force.
And a waterfall.
Don't get me going on Yannari. That's one of our biggest issues that we have at the moment. The Eldar book's perfectly fine until you put Yannari somewhere alongside of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we'll talk about that a little bit later, just because, that's a major fix they need to do, is just Fix the Inari. Don't worry about points.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So I guess while you kind of talked about Du Bois, do you want to just get into kind of some details on what Du Bois is?
Sure. Boyz GT is the largest GT in New York State right now. What it is it's primarily, we have been for many, many years, a comp GT. The last 2 years, we've kind of taken a step back from that. But one of the big things is to win the best and biggest prizes is to win best overall. So we take into hobby and sportsmanship along with gameplay involved in that. And this year, we've got a special prize for the first person overall on the 40K side of things. You'll be winning a special Orc Choppa made by RMC Gaming out of Ohio. So I'll be painting that up in the next week or so. And if you follow us on Facebook, you'll be seeing some shots of that coming. But one of the big things we do is we pride ourselves on having great tables and terrain, unique missions. So we don't run just your standard ITC missions or book missions. And we do a lot with the hobby and sportsmanship thing to where the point total that you can get for that towards best overall is actually equal to a game. And some of our best prizes always fall to the hobby side of things.
Yeah, I've gone many times, and I'll agree that, like, if you're maybe because it's 5 rounds, so if you normally maybe win 4 games, but you have a beautiful army, you could basically win. You don't need to win all your games, which is it's good, and it means that when you show up to Du Bois, for the most part, everybody's got really nice armies. You know, I probably got the worst one there, so
I don't think you had the worst one there, but. Like last year, Dave Koska, who won the best overall, actually, I think went 3-1-1. Last year, the painting score was a little bit more. It was worth like a game and a half. I've taken it back a small step this year. But sportsmanship's a big thing. Actually, we're going to be whole new painting rubric again this year. We've been reworking it. It's going to be, all games are going to be worth a maximum of 50 points. Progressive style objectives and all that good stuff to go with it. But painting will be a 50-point rubric of the max you can earn towards best overall, but there'll actually be 75 available points for people to get to. So when we start judging best painted and getting to the top 10, it's really going to separate the men from the boys, let's say. And as always, we're going to have a fan vote for the best painted army. We also are going to be doing, which we do for AOS, Kings of War, and 40K. If you bring a table's worth of terrain, you can enter it into the best table overall theme to win a prize for bringing a table's worth of terrain, which is always good fun. We always get some very unique tables doing that.
Yeah, I remember one year there was a guy that brought a Jurassic Park themed table. It was one of the coolest things I ever saw. I think is that the same guy that brought the Mario table, or is the Mario table yours?
That was the same guy that brought the Mario table.
Table, that's awesome.
Yeah, like I remember
8-bit Mario or like 64-bit Mario.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely 8-bit Mario.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it was very much like, gold boxes. I think it was black and white tiles. I can't remember like the heavy details. I just, it's just kind of really neat to see. And then the boys always
would you get a power up?
That'd be nice, but no. But yeah, and then the one of my favorite tables is the Du Bois table. That's all the liquor bottles used as line of sight blocking terrain, and all the beer cans. And they're not like some people use beer cans and they paint them. No, it's like I'm hiding behind this Budweiser can. Yeah,
it's very much just a straightforward. Hey, we drink. It's one of those.
Do you guys are you guys? I don't want to put you on the spot. Are you guys still doing the best overall doesn't have to buy beer for the next year thing, or?
I don't know if Kemp is doing that again this year. I haven't checked with him yet, but we do always give out a beer pitcher and set of glasses, and of course we'll always fill it that night.
Okay.
And if you bring it back in, I'm pretty sure you can talk one of us into buying you a beer. It's not real hard.
Nope. Those cheap American beer
one of the nice things we have at Du Bois this year is we actually have a Shadespire Grand Clash on Friday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's the first sponsorship Grand Clash on the East Coast. Really? So we're hoping that we do well with that so we can become one of those nice GW-approved events next year. We tried getting for this year, but we didn't jump through enough hoops yet to get there, but we're trying real hard.
Well, you see what they did with that, eh? With the they stealth upped it on the post from 130 to 500. Did you see that?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
They said they'll do it for, they'll offer support to smaller events, which would be what we would fall into, probably Capital City Bloodbath. But I'm thinking all of us are going to grow over the next few years. Like this year, we sold out sooner than I expected to. I expected to sell out, but not this early. And we're already looking at adding more space. That's why we're building our wait list right now and getting as many people on it as we can, so we know how much space to add.
Yeah. What are you at right now for like 40K?
We're at 100 for 40K, 40 for AOS. We've got, I'm not sure if Kings of War sold out yet, but we had a set number for that. And Shadespire, we're low on the numbers currently, but we expect that to go because they just came out with all the Night Haunt stuff and everything else. So it'll pick back up shortly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, upstate New York and, Ottawa, Canada, a lot of Canadians go to your event, and a lot of people in that part of New York and New York State will come to our events, and it's kind of a thing, northeastern kind of part of the continent. And
I was heartbroken that I didn't get to make Capital City this year. I was still to this day, I'm very upset about that.
Yeah.
Well, they'll be next year.
Oh, I will definitely be there next year.
Cool.
So, and a little about myself on the gaming side of things. My primary army is Tyranids. My Tyranids are fairly well known. I also have Genestealer, Cult, Space Marines, Tau, Necrons. For Age of Sigmar, I have a Khorne army and a Sylvaneth army.
Very nice. So lots of variety there.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to give it off to you, Darren, to give the pay the bills, keep the lights on, give the standard plugs.
Yeah, do we thank our patrons very much who are current supporters. We've not had any new patrons since last week, since this is the first time we've done a weekly show in a long time. And so we thank everybody for supporting us on Patreon and just generally supporting the channel. I know, for example, Brian, I don't think there's been a post in the last year that we've made that you haven't commented on, so we know you're a big supporter of the channel, which is great. I'd like to thank our big sponsors. Dan at Sequence Comics, Dylan at Multizone, Dave at Tistaminis, and Martin over at Dyson Decks, who has apparently just opened his store, and it looks pretty sweet.
Oh, the new store. Finally, I saw a whole bunch of pictures, just renovations and painting, and so it's good if you finally opened it, you can start making some money.
Yeah. And I just want to encourage everybody, if you want to support us in equally important ways, which is to leave us hopefully good, but they don't have to be good, reviews on Facebook and iTunes especially, really helps us reach new people and new listeners across the world for the podcast and for the channel. So thanks for everybody's support.
Cool. So we're going to move right into it. There was an event that none of us could attend. It was in Montreal, called Warzone Montreal. I don't know if anybody. Montreal is a city located in Quebec, so it's a all Francais region of Canada. They've been this. It's run by Zicada Sports or Zicada. I'm not very good with pronunciations. Everybody knows, and so they've been running events at their store for a long time now. And I believe he branched out to do a bigger event. And so Warzone Montreal was in the 30s, right, Darren? People?
I think in the end they ended up with 35. I think one of the problems is I didn't really hear much about the event until CCBB, because quite clearly there's a large portion of Montreal and Quebec comes to our events, and similarly a lot of our guys probably would have gone over there, but it wasn't super advertised. Kind of like we were doing CCBB, so it felt like it could have been bigger. But yeah, they ended up with 35.
Yeah, well, that being said, though, once Dominic, he was basically the Northern Defenders kind of ringleader, he used to run a lot of events in Montreal, and then he got reposted out to New Brunswick. And so a lot of the events kind of dried up, and I believe this is the second Warzone Montreal that they've ran. And it's been getting bigger and bigger. So 35 for Montreal is actually quite large to have a competitive event. It's kind of impressive. But on the advertising, yeah, I did know about it because I follow their Facebook page. I just was unable to go, but I guess we could maybe help them out with some better advertising in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just like Brian's doing, people can definitely reach out to us. And, it's not like we're not going to help other people because we need it all for ourselves sort of thing. That is not really a thing.
I really wanted to go. I just couldn't do it with all the ETC and Capital City kind of burnt me out for a few weeks. And then now the tournament season's ramping up. But I was thinking about bringing my 1,000 Suns and trying to hold on to the title, but don't think I can do that anymore. So let's move on. There was a bunch of weird lists because, of course, the Canadian meta maybe isn't as competitive as the U.S. meta is. So we tend to have a lot of different lists kind of at the top. I think Capital City was one of the first times where I wasn't shocked by too many of the top lists. They were pretty standard. But a lot of our other events are very kind of mix-mash. So we're going to run through the top 5 lists and what we think about them. So let's start with number 5, Darren.
Yeah, so number 5 was Ben Singer. And so this is battle points, not overall. I actually don't know what the overall was, but so Ben was running Ynnari. So he had Eldrad. Let's see, just one unit of Shining Spears, Swooping Hawks, a couple units of Swooping Hawks, a bunch of Dark Reapers, and then a Laytok, Spirit Seers, Rangers, Wave Serpents, Yvrain, and he was running the triple Fire Prism.
So, Brian, what do you think of that list?
It's not bad. I mean, I'm going to stick to my guns on the Ynnari needs a little bit of fixing to bring things into alignment, but with only single Shining Spear and the Fire Prisms, not so bad. And it seems pretty balanced.
Yeah, like Chris, have you played against the triple Fire Prism with the stratagem thing? Have you felt that burn?
I have faced it once. I felt the burn, but I didn't have that much problems dealing with it. A lot of what I end up running these days is a lot of Horde, so it wasn't quite so bad, but it was rough.
Yeah, my take on that list is you saw Ynnari go from like the double spears kind of infantry. It kind of when the Tyranids were kind of at their prime, where there was a ton of Flyrants, you saw a lot of people take Fire Prisms as a way to, kill the Flyrants and survive. And yeah, one of the major problems if you screw up with Ynnari is you lose your whole army and you basically get tabled unless you play it really well. Like it's not completely idiot proof, but it's also super strong. So I find the Fire Prisms a little bit safer. They're better against flyers. They allow the Eldar player or Ynnari player to not commit, sit back, shoot. They add the range. So I like them. Yeah, but double Shining Spears are just so good in the meta right now that it's kind of second fiddle. But we did bring a similar list to ETC without the spears. With Eric played that. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yep. So he came in 5th. Sebastian Delisle came in 4th, playing Tyranids. So he had Chronos Hive Tyrants, 1, 2, just 2 of them. Malanthropes, Neurothropes, Rippers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 50 Termagants. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 Hive Guard, some more Zoanthropes, and a whole bunch of Spores. And then 1, 2, 3 Biovores, I think, because he probably from points. And then he had an extra Hive Tyrant that was cracking.
Yeah, so I'm not a NID expert.
That's my department.
So I was going to say I'll hand it off to Brian to give his take on this one as well.
So on that, you got a lot of good table control, and with the Psychics, you can do quite a little bit of smiting around. The Neuranthrope allowing the rerolls of 1s for the Zoanthropes is really nice. Good Synapse, a lot of Fearless. So you can handle the Hordes, and the double shooting with the Hive Guard can take out the big target fairly easily. I mean, they hit on 3s if they don't move. It's AP -2, D3 damage apiece at strength 8. They're a good gun, and I mean, with a full unit or multiple units of them, it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I've got as an opponent of lots of Tyranids, I find that the Hive Guard occasionally will do what you think they should do, but often doesn't, especially if you're rocking some invulns. And that's even with, so many times I'm like, oh, that Hive Guard's going to take out my biker unit or whatever, and then it just doesn't end up doing it. And especially if you don't play is it the Cronus that gives you the reroll ones?
Yeah.
So initially people weren't playing that. They were just running 6 to 9 Hive Guard without the reroll 1s and just crying when they're rolling 1s and 2s. So that really does help them to reroll 1s. But yeah, I don't know. There's been some lists floating around Nova with huge amounts of Hormigons and Gene Stealers and kind of just flooding everybody.
Well, it's because you got to think about it this way. What's the downside of the Hive Guard? You touch them. You touch those bad boys, you lock them in combat, they're useless.
Yeah.
They're very expensive, but they're really fantastic in ITC because you can just put them in a ruin and shoot anything you want.
Yep.
So you do need the Hormagaunts to kind of do the board control. So you are seeing a lot of 180 Hormagaunt lists just saying like, okay, you're never going to touch them. I'm going to control objectives and just kind of take you off. Because as Darren said, they're not a Castellan, right? They're not going to nuke half of an army in one turn. They need several turns to kind of grind down the enemies.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big things coming that I see coming with the Tyranids is you're going to see a lot of zoanthrope units hitting soon. Probably a lot of 4-man zoanthropes backing up, 120 to 180 Hormagaunt Termagaunt combination, because they have basically the Vindicator kill shot stratagem for Tyranids, which is very effective. Once you pull that off, people are going to focus fire trying to get those zoanthropes down to where the units are below 3, and then you're just going to overrun them with models. Mm-hmm. So it's a nice hit and miss thing, and a lot of people are not seeing that synergy that's there. So you can catch a lot of people by surprise.
So how many zoanthropes you think is like the right number in a 2,000 point list?
I think 3 units of 4.
3 units of 4.
3 units of 4. Yeah, it seems to have that good synergy. The stratagem for the kill shot is if you have 3 or more in the unit, all within 6 inches of each other, if I remember correctly. And you can do the Vindicator kill shot style thing, which everybody knows. And it's very effective. It gets rid of a lot of those little problematic things, because 3d3 mortal wounds to stuff is pretty effective. You're killing, you get that off on characters. You're taking out all the Kristoff Aquillas and all that little stuff, and people seem to lump that stuff together pretty good.
Yeah. So you get some AOE, and then also like they do take down knights after a couple turns, right? 3 units of 4. They'll kill what, a knight? Is that a knight a turn or a knight every other turn, or?
Well, possibly a knight every other turn, I would say, without too much difficulty. Yeah.
And
which isn't bad.
Do you think 3 Hive Tyrants is still auto take?
No, I almost never have a Hive Tyrant in the list these days.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're too expensive.
I found that if I'm running with monsters, I normally have a Chronos, and I've got 2 Tyrannofexes sitting in the background and an Exocrine, because they seem to be more effective against taking out that big stuff, especially that Castellan that sits there all the time, because you need something that does D6 damage to handle that.
We're in like a meta of big stuff right now, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that segues us perfectly into the number 3 list, Jordan Lasnier, who is also running Tyranids. A different list, though, and I think when we see the Gene Stealer Codex, we're going to start seeing a lot of this, especially if the Brood Brothers rule becomes a little bit better. So he's running Neurothropes, Jormungandr, Rippers, small unit Termagants, 1, 2, 3, just 6 Hive Guard, a bunch of Carnifexes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 Carnifexes.
Are they the Dakifexes or are they combat?
Heavy Venoms and Death Spitters.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Slimer Maggots.
Big stuff.
And then he's running 3 Leman Russ Conquerors in a Death Core Marshal. Interesting. Probably just because it's cheap. And then a Gene Stealer Magus as an auxiliary support detachment.
Yeah, that's the detachment that'll drive me nuts forever.
So enlighten us, Brian, on the secret tech behind a single Magus. I know why people run Maguses, because you need HQs for Gene Stealer.
You take the single Magus, so therefore you now have unlocked the ability to have the Brood Brotherhood ability to their Astra Militarum. So for 73 points, you've now completely unlocked all the Astra Militarum stuff to use alongside Tyranids, which is pretty good, because then you get the CP regen farm, which we all know is an issue of some form. And you get all that high-powered shooting, high strength, because he used the Conquest, to go with all the Venom cannons he was throwing. He really wasn't going to have a problem with anything big. Clearly, he was worried about the Knight meta with that list a little bit, because the heavy Venom cannons, D3 shots, strength 9, AP2, 3 damage. They're a solid gun.
So remind me, if you're running Brood Brothers, you get everything from the Guard Codex other than the regiment traits. Is that correct?
Correct.
So all the stratagems and stuff, and you can run whatever unit
you get all the non chapter.
The non-chapter specific ones.
Yeah, the non-chapter specific stuff, which is, perfectly fine because you get Kristoff Sequilla, you can, Warlord up with the Grand Strategist, and now you've got the CP farm going, which I'm fairly positive is what he did on that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm almost surprised he didn't run like a patrol with 20 Gene Stealers just to do like maybe the first turn drop-in charge kind of bomb right away and distract them.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people like that Magus because you can just jump in, mind control the Castellan, and
yeah, that's always fun.
whoop that crap out of stuff. It's pretty fun to do. Smart players, work around that fairly well by giving them a big enough bubble. But when you make a mistake and that Magus comes in, it's pretty brutal.
Or if he has enough shooting like that, he might be able to clear the backfield. Or you can't survive all the time. It depends on the terrain. And no, that's really tricksy. I really like that a lot. Like, yeah, I'll just throw away a detachment and a few points, 70 points or whatever, and I'll have all the guardsmen I want.
It doesn't seem like there's enough penalty for taking an auxiliary support.
Now,
why?
That command point's not a big deterrent.
Yeah.
Not in Tyranids, no. And it seems like they don't require the third detachment. Like I have a lot of lists, like my 1,000 Suns, where I couldn't afford to do something similar. Like I need all 3 detachments. They're very distinct. But yeah, the NIDs do appear like they don't need several detachments because they don't need to mix and match different legions so much, or not legions.
Running 5 Cabalite Wars gets you vect, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That is true.
Mm-hmm. That's a big one. I assume that's going to get addressed at some point. My guess is chapter approved on that one, but we'll see.
Yeah, let's hope it gets the same treatment as Tided Traders. Man, that hurt me so
until
bad.
The orcs get tied to traders.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're off topic, but on the subject of Vect, if you Vect a one-use only stratagem, it shouldn't mean that stratagem isn't allowed to be used again. You know what I mean?
I'll agree with you on that one. I think Vect should be a one-time use thing personally, but it is what it is.
It is what it is. I love that saying. Let's go on to number 2, Darren.
All right, number 2, Mail Belcourt. Mail was at Capital City, of course. He was running Jukari. So double Archon, 3 units of warriors at a Cabal of the Black Heart. Pretty standard stuff. Just 1 Ravager. Not sure what possessed him on that one.
Maybe he only owned 1, Darren. Not everybody buys everything.
Literally blasphemous.
it is kind of blasphemous, yeah.
A Void Raven.
Or was it Blaster Miss? I don't know if that works.
Yeah, no, that didn't come off quite.
That didn't come off at all.
That missed.
2
that
Raiders.
missed hard.
2 Raiders, 2 Venoms, and then a Laytalk, usual Warlock, Iliac Night Spear, 3 Rangers, Wave Serpent, and then a Supreme Command of Ulthway, Farseer, Skyrunner, Spirit Seer, and a unit of Wraithguard.
That's the strangest Drukari list I think I've ever heard of.
Yeah, what'd you think of that? Some secret tech in there.
Very strange. I would assume he's going to Webway portal in the Wraithguard. Seems like a play there. The rest
Buff
of
them
it's
up.
Somewhat standard, but the rest of it's a little strange.
Yeah, so
it's just got a little bit of everything, kind of mixed matched. It does a little bit of the bonuses from all the lists.
Yeah, but
it shoots okay.
It's still strong because they just do everything so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's a weird list. I don't even know what to say to that. Yeah, because I've played Yannari. Like I've played with them and I've played against them, and I've never seen Wraithguard that effective in this edition.
Yeah. Well, kudos to him for coming in second.
Yeah. Definitely.
So number 1.
All right, number 1 is Eric Dion, who I believe running a pretty similar list that he ran at Capital City. I think he did pretty well at Capital City, although he didn't win this year. He won last year. So he was running 1,000 Suns, Ahriman, 2 Demon Princes of Zinch, 2 basic units of Cultists, and then a big Zangor unit, 27 Zangors. Then a Shaman. Then he was running Zinch Demons, Fluxmaster, Changeling, 60 Pink Horrors. Nope, there's more. Oh, those are Brimstones. 60 Pinks. and then Supreme Command detachment of Khorne, Bloodmaster, 2 Demon Prince, 2 Khorne Demon Princes.
So no Magnus. He got rid of his Magnus.
So he took Magnus out, I guess, and replaced it with the 2 Khorne Demon Princes. You know who I think convinced him of that?
Who?
Probably Jim.
Jim Vessel.
He was running the crazy Bloodthirster Demon Prince with that crazy axe that does like a bajillion damage.
Oh my god, that axe is like disgusting when it hits.
That axe is amazing.
So
that's interesting that he kept the Changeling, I guess, for his pinks. He kept the Changeling for the 6-up Feel No Pain on the pinks. Most people only take the Changeling if they run Magnus, just to kind of keep him alive for that first turn if you go second. So that is interesting. And he did up his pinks to 60. So now I believe he only had, I could be wrong, I thought he had 30 at Capital City. So maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, that's 60 is a lot of damage. And they can deep strike in. And then he's got the Zangor on foot to clear out buildings. They can go in, fight twice, clear away. So he can clear line of sight, things that are behind line of sight blockers quite easily. The pinks can come in, +1 to wound, reroll 1s to hit, strength 4. They shoot like crazy. That's 180 shots.
There's a lot of psychic powers in there. A
lot of combat.
Yeah, it's a really tough list.
It's a lot of Demon Princes, though. 4?
5, I think. No, 4.
No, 4 in Ahriman.
Yeah, 4 in Ahriman.
And Ahriman's a no-brainer. He's really, really good.
Yeah.
And you can't target anything. He's got enough of a pink shield. Yeah, I understand why it won. Yeah, it's really good.
Now, did you guys look through the list and see if there was a lot of Castellans there? Because in our meta area, every time Armand hits the table, he seems to die because there's a Castellan that just blows him off the board.
Yeah, so I'm just looking down. The first Imperium list we have is 7th, Sebastian Richer, who's running Talarn Shadow Sword, basically, with a Knight.
But he's the Hellhound. He's the Hellhound guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a lot of Hellhounds.
But he didn't have a Castellan. And then there's a Mechanicus list right after that who had Armigers and a Gallant, but no Castellan. So for whatever reason, the Castellan disappeared from the Montreal area. Then we had Custodes, Tau, some more Custodes, Deathwatch, Blood Angels. Yeah, not a Catechin in sight.
Yeah, well the Castellan's good.
In some ways. Makes for a more
Castellan's. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Castellan's good, but I think his list could still take it out with the pinks. Because you got to think about, he's going to missile off Ahriman. Maybe he'll get another character turn 2. But, princes can't be killed in one turn to the missile. And I'm assuming most people only have 2 missiles. And then, so he's shooting pink horrors. So I think it saves him. Like, if he had Magnus, he'd probably lose Magnus in one turn to the Castellan. But that is strange that they're not there because they're so prevalent in the game right now. But it's also a $200 Canadian kit that a lot of people might just be waiting for the Nerf bat to hit before they buy it.
Well, that makes sense. I'm so used to the U.S. prices. I keep forgetting how much more you guys have to pay for things.
Yeah, what is it, U.S., like 160 or something like that?
Yeah, it's in the 160 range, 160, 180.
Yeah,
so
I'm trying to find the first Smash Captain, and I don't find one till like 13th.
Yeah.
And this guy was running pure Blood Angels, so not really kind of the, the typical use for a Smash Captain.
Yeah. And as we said, it is Montreal. It's a different meta. You tend to not see the extreme list there as much. Even up Capital City, we didn't see that many extreme lists. There was 5 or 6 at the most. And the rest were pretty, varied. And it's funny because... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, God. Anytime I see Capital City, I have to say Team Diogo Pitta at least once, or else I get yelled at by Diogo.
He thinks he's going to get second overall in the ITC with Team Diogo Pitta, so
wouldn't surprise me.
I have my doubts. But it's funny that we're talking about Castellans, and I'm building one right now, actually, so I'm holding it in my hands. But yeah, they're pretty good. Anything that surprises you at all, Brian, from these lists, or?
The multiple Khorne Demon Princes kind of surprised me a little bit, but after seeing what one of them's done recently, I'm somewhat impressed with that axe that does all that crazy damage. You might see that starting to become more prevalent.
Yeah, because what does the axe do again? It gives them additional strength and 6 wounds, right? 6 damage.
6 damage. Yeah, it's the 6 damage that's the big thing with the number of attacks that they have. That's something that can get into the knights or some other large item and take it down with 1 round of combat.
Yeah, I had one go in and just literally murder my demon prince. I fought the corn demon prince at the ETC. One of the guys was from France, and it's just like he went in. He's like, I just need 2 wounds to go through, and you're dead. So that is pretty crazy. 6 damage is almost unbelievable and almost unheard of. So not surprised. Darren, did anything shock you?
Well, just other than the overall layout of the top 15. Interesting list.
Cool. So you wanted to talk about some stuff that you think needs to be nerfed, right, Darren?
I don't think it needs to be nerfed. I wanted to talk about the boogeyman things in the game right now that we think may get adjusted.
So what's the first boogeyman? What's the first boogeyman thing?
Really, more how you guys think that things might get adjusted, since that is a hot topic right now in 40K. So, in no particular order, Vect.
So I guess we'll start with Brian. What do you think needs to happen to Vect to fix it or change it?
I mean, number one, I think the first problem with the Vect is the auxiliary detachment. The -1 CP, throw 5 guys in there and go, hey, look, I have Vect now. I think that's going to get fixed to where you have to have a true detachment, not just the small detachment. But I think it's going to be, a once per turn, not once per phase stratagem. That's what I think will be the easiest fix for it.
Yeah, so once per player turn.
That'll be enough?
I think so. You can bait that out pretty easily. I mean, there's enough stratagems that everyone has access to that you're going to be like, well, if I Vect that, I kind of am going to miss this. So you really have to think about it at a key point. But that once per phase thing, I mean, granted, the Dark Eldar player is going to burn through 9 command points sometimes on the first turn, but you're typically starting with 12 to 18. So.
And it's not just that, like, if he saves it, let's say, if you're like a Blood Angel Smash Captain, or if you're, let's say, like another one, like playing Chaos Space Marines, he only needs to stop a couple crucial stratagems, and he's basically neutered your army.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's irrelevant how many CP he does. Like, if he takes away your one trick, you're just screwed.
Yeah.
A lot of people have to learn not to rely on the one trick now because of that. You have to... In some ways, you have to be a little more balanced, and you have to have a little more horde, because that one big punch that you're relying on, like Tide of Traitors or something like that, if you're running Vect, you have to completely change up your game plan for that game.
Or the one thing that I found is even just spending 2 command points to auto pass a leadership test, him Vecting that means you're just taking way more casualties than maybe you should, which is frustrating. So I guess I'll go next, and we'll end with Darren. Vect needs to be stepped down. It'd be nice if they kind of ruled that only CP generated per detachment can be used for that faction. So maybe if that could be something that could tone it down. But I think just limiting it, and as well as if you stop a one use only stratagem, it should kind of let you use it again. It should be one use only or one successful use only. Mm-hmm. Darren, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think I have too much more to say other than that. I mean, part of me thinks that in isolation as a 3 CP stratagem, being able to counter someone else's stratagem 5 out of 6 times is probably okay. Maybe 4 CP, but the per phase thing really kills it. And sure, that's not so bad if you didn't have 18 CP to do it that many times. So there's quite a lot of things that add up to make Vect very good. And it's like, yeah, you shouldn't play reliant on single stratagems, but at the end of the day, a lot of armies do. Like a Castling without Raven is not half as good as a Castling with Raven.
That's a good point. And sometimes it may not be like, oh, I just won't rely on it, which means that some of these beautiful armies or models just get left on the shelf because their book is a one-trick pony, right?
Your Smash Captain relies on like 5 or 6 stratagems, but really you just need to make him charge 9 inches instead of 3d6, and he's a 50% chance of failing that charge. Now he's dead in the water. So, it's super powerful because, yes, it's quite powerful, just the ability to stop something, but also because the way that a lot of the armies are set up is you need that one thing to happen.
Yeah, one of the big things that we've seen is with the increase in command points that came, down the pipeline, Vect became more powerful because of that, because now I'm running, 3 inexpensive, battalion detachments, and I'm starting with 18 CP. If I was starting, down the line with 12, there's a big difference there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm thinking, if it's 4, does that make a big enough difference? 4 CP?
They're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Let's face it, they're not going to change rules. They're not going to change the amount of CP. They're going to either limit it or
so once a turn would be reasonable, I think. Or how about on a 4-up that happens? Something.
I mean, they could tie to traders it, in all honesty. They could make it a once per game kind of thing, because then your one-trick pony stops their one-trick pony. But I don't know if they're going to go that far with it.
I hope they don't, which sounds bad because I think I just bitched about how much I hate it. But if they go, I hate it when they nerf something to the point where it's like you almost don't want to take it anymore. So they'll have to find that medium. So what's the next unit, Darren?
Sorry, the last point I want to make about Vect is that it's yet another thing that Eldari has is the kicker, right?
Yeah. I'm playing a Craft World army. I'll just throw in a couple 100 points, and now I can shut down your stratagem. Yeah. Makes you better.
You don't even need a couple 100 points. You can do it for 65. I mean, you can just throw in that, -1 CP detachment, and look, you have access to it.
Yeah, or you could just take even 3 Ravagers and an HQ, and I don't think anybody will cry about that except for your opponent. So next one, Darren?
All right, so carrying on the Eldari theme, we have Shining Spears. And I don't mean Adonis Deepkin. Jason Sparks.
Yeah, what a tool. So take it away,
Shining
Brian.
Spears pretty dominant.
So on Shining Spears, I think on the whole, if you're running Craft World, they're fine. They in a Craft World army that's all straight Craft World, I don't see a problem with them. It's the minute you put that Yanari ability in there with Soul Burst, with all that stuff, that's when it starts becoming problematic. I think on their own they're okay. I just think when they fall into the Yanari bubble with all the other stuff with Eldari, it becomes problematic.
Yeah, I think it's that, because I guess we can talk about Yanari next, but it's that, but it's also Protect, Guide, Doom, Jinx.
Yep.
Those are the 4 boogeyman powers that suddenly turn this unit that people had never even heard of before this edition to powerhouse unit.
Yeah, but I have to agree with Brian because they are a fairly expensive unit. Even with all those buffs, you're taking a ton of characters. If they came in and they just shot and murdered a unit, charged a unit and did a lot of damage to it, then they just die. So I'm not really too worried. It's when they're like Yanari and they're double moving, or they're shooting twice or fighting twice, and they're killing 2 to 3 units, sometimes 4, or they'll usually kill 3 units and then they'll wrap another unit and tie it in. It just seems too excessive. I think that's what just puts them over the edge, because if you up their points cost, then they might not be usable anymore. It all comes down to that Yanari. Dark Reapers, they made them so expensive that you don't want to take them now, or you do still want to take them. They're still good, but they're not as common. And I still kind of don't know if it was the Dark Reapers that was the problem, or if it was making them Yanari and shooting them twice.
Yeah.
It's the Yanari key. It's the Yanari thing that's no matter how many times they try to adjust it and fix all the Soulburst stuff, it just doing the same thing multiple times where there's no drawback to it. It's tough. The fighting twice, stratagems, anything where you can do something twice, shooting twice, it's tough when you're talking about a stratagem that gives you, it costs you CP to do when there's not regen. It's not so bad. I mean, it's rough, but you can deal with it. But when you're talking something that's always fighting twice almost every time, it gets to be a little bit tough.
Yeah,
and they shoot like crazy.
Yeah.
Like they have a
shots.
ridiculous amount of shots.
But they're doing stuff that other armies are paying 2 or 3 CP for.
Exactly.
And moving twice is something a lot of armies can't do at all.
Yep.
And that's free. Well, it's free, like they have to kill something, but it's basically free.
Yeah.
So I agree. I think it's the Inari thing that puts them way over the top. So we'll go right on to the next one then, which is the Inari keyword. So how do you think we can fix Inari?
Remove it. Make them craft world.
Make it a craft world. That's the first thing I would recommend.
Just make them Eldar characters. Yeah, or make them neutral.
Yeah. They need to. You need to, number one, if you're going to do Ynnari, the minute you do that, you lose Craft World, you lose Drukhari, you lose all those keywords, so you lose the ability to be targeted by those stratagems, which would hamper it to a point. I think it's still good, but if the fact that you can make your Shining Spears Bealtan, so you can hit him with the Bealtan stratagem because you took a Craft World attachment to unlock it, that's where the problem falls in. If you FAQ it away to where Ynnari replaces, their keyword is Eldari, Ynnari, they lose Craft Worlds. You lose the Cabals and all that stuff. That might help fix it. I don't think it's going to, but I think it would slow it down a little bit.
Yeah, for me, it's a index book that's still influencing modern codex books. And I don't think they were ever meant to stack. So to me, if they wanted to keep selling those characters, they made that mistake or released them as like a PDF online. These 3 characters, these are the rules. You can have them in any Eldar detachment. It changes nothing. They're just neutral Eldar characters. You can put them in Harlequins. They don't add anything to your army. They just have, and they'll have to rewrite their rules a little bit, make them a little bit better on their own. But so that's kind of my thing.
Well, what do you think about the idea of turning Strength from Death into a stratagem?
No, I think just get rid of it all.
It would be fine as a 3-piece set, 3 command point stratagem. Sure. You want to make it, a stratagem? I'm fine with that, but it's that you would have to take the character to unlock that one stratagem, maybe. I'd have to play that out to see.
Yeah, and then that's the issue is the reason that they have these big FAQs for them that say, oh, this is what it does, is because there's no way to just take them. Like if they maybe made a special detachment for them, which was you can take 1 to 3 Ynnari characters and it unlocks these 5 stratagems, then I'd be okay with that, right? It's just the mixing right now that's the issue.
Yeah, and the fact that the whole Ynnari thing is really just 3 guys.
Yeah,
right. That were put in for mostly narrative reasons at the dying ends of 7th.
Yeah, and I know that GW doesn't like to get rid of models. Like they want to say if you buy it, you're able to play with it. But the only other option is raise their points cost to the point where they're so expensive that nobody takes them, and then they have the same issue, right?
Pretty much.
So, anything else, Darren?
No. We can move on to the next boogeyman. We'll finish the Eldari sector of the universe by chatting quickly about Triple Ravager.
They're a little bit cheap, but other than that, they are fragile. They're hard to hide. They're just a little bit too cheap.
They're a little too expensive. I think if they went up by about 25 points, it would probably balance it right out.
Yeah, like they're not terrible. And as far as I'm concerned, Darren, Taloses are way worse than Ravagers, in my opinion. I just played a game recently. It was a doubles game, so we mixed Thousand Suns and a Castellant, and I death hexed a unit of Talos, and then the Castellant shot them and didn't kill the whole unit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like 1,000 points pulling off like a super trick onto one little unit of 3. The guy had 6 of them, and we didn't even kill 3 with that, right?
Yeah.
Making them toughness 8, 4+ invul, which was gone obviously from Magnus, and then a 5-up feel no pain when they're like 7 wounds a pop is, I think, pretty excessive. And I said toughness 8 because everybody puts a homunculi behind them, right?
And they're pretty cheap for all that too.
Yeah, they're excessive. The Talos are definitely more problematic, I think, than the Triple Ravager. If you look at the gentleman who won Capital City, wasn't he running 2 units of them?
Yep. Yep. And at ETC, you saw a lot of teams with 9 of them. They have a ton of attacks, so they can go in and clear hordes. Like 6 of those guys go in, that's 40 cultists like neutered. You won't kill all of them. They can kill like almost any horde unit 6 Taloses can go into, and in like one turn basically mincemeat them. They also have a lot of mortal wound output towards tanks.
Yep.
So they can pop knights, they can pop your tanks, they can pop your flyers with tons of mortal wound output. So that's the thing. When you said Ravagers in the show notes, I was like, okay, he's right. They should go up a little bit, like 20, 30 points. They're just a little bit too good. But it's the Taloses that need to just go up more.
Yeah, I think those need a 30 to 35 point increase. If you compare them, side by side with other monstrous creatures that are in that range, they head and shoulders above all of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that almost doesn't even take into account that you run them as prophets, and then you put like Rakarth next to them, and now they're like 50% harder to kill.
Yeah.
That could be, maybe they shouldn't have done, maybe Wrathcard shouldn't have buffed them as much as he does, but you can't change that. They're not going to go back and rewrite the rules. All they can do is go back and up the points. And they're good enough that you up them 30 points, as Brian said, and they're fantastic. You're still going to take 6 of them.
Yeah. Maybe
now you don't take 9, you take more grotesques or something like that. Because that's how you know something's truly crazy, is when people max them out. And it's like a no-brainer. Like if you're playing Dark Elder, you're like, 3 Ravagers, 6 Talos. To me is like a no-brainer. That's how you start a list.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the Castellan.
Yeah.
Is that just a points up, or is it a fix to House Raven? Like, what are we talking about?
I think the biggest fix you could make on everything right now is you can only spend command points from the detachment that it came on to use it. So therefore, you're only spending your 3 CP one time on a Castellan. I think that fixes the Castellan there, but it would fix a lot of other things. But the Castellan's going to go up in points. There's no ifs, ands, or doubts about it. It's probably going to be in the 7 to 750 range is my guess when all is said and done.
Yeah, so you say that, and I agree with you that it's probably going to go up. But I also think, like, if you make a Castellan 700 and nerf CP farms, are people going to take them?
No.
That's the issue. So then that means the nerf was overdone.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually believe that the Castellan is point costed effectively. And remember, I'm biased because I am building one at the moment.
Right.
So I am biased. I'm going to admit to that. But I've been thinking a lot about it. Like I spent a couple hours for the show, building it and just thinking about what they should do. And if you take away CP regen completely, let's say Astro Militarum lose complete CP regen, that Castellan is only going to be really good for about 2 turns. And then he's probably going to die because they are hungry with CP. If you want to get the ion shields, if you want to do the reroll ones, you want to make him a character and buy some items, that's a ton of CP. Yeah. So a lot of the problem is CP generation. So if they just, like, let's say they just tomorrow said, okay, no more CP regen in the entire game, maybe a Castellan is now worth its points and it's fine.
It's like a turn 2 killer, and then that's it. Drains you, and it sits there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have to think, too, the Castellan lists that are doing really well also have the Blood Angel Smash Captains, which are amazing.
That's coming.
And so is it all the cast? Because I've played with one. How many games did I play with it? I played 2 games with it. One was me controlling it, and one was my partner controlling it. And it did pretty good. Like, a Castellan shot 3 Taloses and killed 1. That's it. Against a Dark Eldar guy. That was the turn that we were out of range to shoot Magnus up and remove their invul save. So he really didn't do that much to it. He killed 30 or 45 orc boys over a couple of turns against an orc army. He actually lost the game against a Blood Angel Smash Captain list that just hit all their stuff, right? You use up your missiles, you kill Mephiston, then you just hide and take objectives from it. The way to beat a Castellan is just to not shoot it, not kill it, and just play the mission and kill all the other stuff. So I just don't think upping it to 750 is the answer. It's going to sit on the shelf.
Oh, I agree with you completely. The biggest problem with the list that has the Castellan in it is the CP regen. If you take the CP regen away, the Castellan's a good model and it's point efficient. If they don't if they only go after nerfing the Castellan, they're not effectively doing what should be done. I think, in my personal opinion, is if the Castellan stays where it is and they make CP regen, which I assume we're going to talk about a little bit, if they make the CP regen a lot harder, that's where things would come into effect.
So some people argue that the Castellan boogeyman list with all the guard and the BA captains and stuff really only arose as a solution to Ynnari. Because it seems to be a pretty good counter to Ynnari. As we see at the top, it's that list or it's Ynnari, and they go back and forth. So I don't know the solution to this, but I would expect that you'd want to tread carefully nerfing these individual aspects and how it affects. Because if, let's say, you kill CP regen and you kill the Castellan, now what floats to the top? Ynnari, right? Like back to the top. Like they're already at the top, but so yeah.
Well, I think they've got to when they look at it, they've got to look at it on the whole. It's one of the it's one of the things that I hope that they do is they look at it of, okay, this is the mix. I mean, if you look at the Nova Open for the example, which I'm sure I remember you guys covering, the thing was at the Invitational, you had pretty much 26 of the exact same lists, so that tells you that where your problems lie.
Yep.
And if it's, hey, look, the best players in the world are saying this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, and this is why, because we're playing them, it opens your eyes. And I've heard from a lot of different people from Nova of some hints and indications that the design team gave at the Invitational about things they were looking at. So
yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to talk about the CP battery then. What do you think would be a reasonable adjustment to the CP battery?
So the first one I would adjust is the Grand Strategist. I would make it so whenever you use an Astra Militarum stratagem, you can reroll to gain. I think that immediately fixes the Imperium farm almost entirely right there.
Yeah, it does cut back on a lot of the regen. Now the Knight stratagems that are really thirsty won't regen it. That's a good call. I kind of think
nerf a lot of armies really badly though.
Like what?
I don't think I think what it does is it makes them so the balance stays there. Because if you're not rolling multiple dice to get back CPs, if you add in what I would consider the other suggestion of is you can only re-roll to gain a CP with one die.
Thing, yeah.
One thing. So you have the Grand Strategist only affects Astra Militarum things. You have it so Gilliman's thing only affects space, Adeptus Astartes things. All the ones that regen, if they only affected stratagems out of that codex, then you wouldn't be regenning off re-rolling dice, re-rolling off the three basics basically. And
but I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with even doing the three basics.
I agree, but I think if you made it so it only affects your book straight stratagems, it really slows down the CP regen.
Mm-hmm.
That's a personal opinion. I think the CP regen is actually one of the biggest problems in the game right now. I mean, I played against the Castellan, whole big thing last week, and he started the game and ended it with the same exact amount of command points and used, in one turn, 15 points worth of stratagems. And regained, I think, like 12 or 13 that turn.
And it was compounded by suddenly all the amounts of CP going up too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
well, and you can do crazy things too. Like you can even take the what's the Blood Angel one called that does it as well?
Veritas Vitae.
Veritas Vitae. You can be like, you can have that, and then you just stack them, and then it's kind of crazy. Now, what started the CP issue? Was it the guard book, or was it that they FAQ'd that battalions give 5 CP?
I think it was the battalion 5 CP.
Yeah. Because I've been playing the CP battery in a guard list before that change. And, yeah, you got some back, but it wasn't obnoxious like it is now. Now, basically, you have to start with a lot and you never run out.
Did you ever see anybody run a brigade before they took it up to 12?
Nope.
I used to, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
Guard is pretty much the only army that ever ran that. And now every Imperium army that does well in the top has a brigade of Guard. And the fast attacks are typically the one big thing that's different in them, but it's almost always 3 mortar teams, a commander and 2 other HQs, 60 troop choices, and the fast attacks are either Hellhounds or Scout Sentinels, depending upon what you're doing.
Rough Riders, bro. That don't exist. They don't exist. It's a joke.
I try to ignore those index things, I guess.
That's another weird one is when do you think they're going to get rid of index-only things?
Well, do you think
I don't think they want to piss off their old, as being one of the old players who has a bunch of old stuff. I don't think they want to irritate us, but they did it when they did it when they changed from 2nd edition to 3rd edition. I do go back that far. This is what the change from 7th to 8th was for me. Stuff goes away. It's an inevitability.
A few things like they don't have to go crazy, but a couple things here and there. Like I have Rough Riders, I love them. I have an avid guard collection, like of all old models and things. But maybe it's time. Like the ETC said, index goes away, and I think it cleared up a lot of shenanigans. But they only said the index goes away if you have a codex books. Yeah, so that's sadly Yunari didn't go away.
I mean, I would assume eventually. I mean, you gotta look at it. We're in year 2 of the cycle now. We've started the 2nd year of the cycle, and if AOS has taught us anything, it seems to be that they're on a 2-year cycle for things. We're gonna have to see where that goes.
Which does seem short. Like I kind of feel as a pretty avid AOS player was until my basement flooded and I moved. And then I just kind of only play 40K for some reason now. But when I was into that, I found that AOS Edition 2 came a little bit quick for me. I still wasn't quite there with all my armies where I wanted to be. I had more work to do. I wasn't bored.
I think we're going to see, I wouldn't say like a full edition change, but I think we're going to see, minor updates next year this time.
Mm-hmm.
Is my guess. But, of course, that's just me looking into the future. But I think with as active as they've been of updating chapter approved, updating the FAQs, the 2 big FAQs, which I'm one of the horrible people on Facebook who keep messaging them on a consistent basis going, hey, when's that coming? And I've gotten an answer saying we plan on having it out by the end of the month. We plan on meeting our deadline. So as long as all that stuff keeps going, they might just update the rulebook and go, here's all the stuff from the big FAQs and all the chapter approves into a book, so it's condensed and now you can find it in one spot.
Yeah,
that'd be good.
Pretty cumbersome.
Yeah, because as a TO, and you guys probably are familiar with this, when you've got the FAQ, the big FAQ, the designer's commentary, the stepping into a new edition, all that stuff you have to look into to answer basic rulebook questions. And
it's a nightmare.
It's tough. So if they update the edition without doing a huge overhaul, because they didn't do a huge overhaul in AOS 2.0, it was just, hey, we fixed some of the little minute problems that we had and continued on. If they do that the same way with 40K, I think it'll help everybody out. The nice thing now is compared to the problems we had in 7th edition, is GW is actually addressing concerns, which is a good thing. Because I won't lie, at the end of 7th edition, I was like, oh God, please kill this already. If I saw one more Riptide Wing or Thunderdome, I was going to lose my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't the only person who just stopped playing completely.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the last thing that I have, and we can always talk about more if you have more. So is the Smash Captain. Now, the question to you really is, okay, Smash Captain, obviously we can talk about Smash Captain itself, but do you think the Smash Captain arose just to deal with Castellans, basically, or Knights in general?
Oh, God, no.
Rose to eminence. I mean, people had Smash Captains before, but you think we see so many of them now as a solution to Knights? Solution
to Knights and solution to Demon Princes. I think those are the 2 things that they really address. The Demon Prince, I mean, you look at someone like TJ Lanigan's list. He was one of the top players in the U.S. scene. Running 3 Demon Princes of Tzeentch and 1,000 Suns detachment, that's a lot of smite to deal with every turn that doesn't go up, because of their rules. And getting the Smash Captains into them and killing them with 3 hits when you can attack twice is kind of a big deal. I mean, those are the 2 things that they address. I think that's why you see them primarily now.
Yeah, they're just really good. The only thing that I hate about Smash Captains is that they made the Blood Angel book not worth taking. Like they're the only thing viable in that whole book, and it's kind of frustrating. I'd rather them, instead of like nerfing some things, maybe make other things better, which they don't tend to do a lot of. Like they do a little bit, but maybe a lot of the Blood Angel stuff needs to drop in points or be fixed.
Well, I mean, you can look at that as a Marine as a whole. That your basic Marine is not worth its point cost.
Yeah, which is funny because even Primaris Marines with that huge drop in points cost half a year ago, 8 months ago, when was that? That was last November. They still didn't come back with like a 20%, I think, across the board drop. It wasn't even enough to make them competitive.
Yeah.
The problem is the only way that Primaris Marines are at all, basic Marines and Primaris Marines fall in is with Ultramarines and Guilliman, and there's just other better choices that you can put in there. The fact that a power armor Marine, you see 10 times more scouts than you see power armor Marines by far in any GT or any competitive scene list, because they're just that much better. They have so much more options and available to them.
Well, and 30 conscripts is better than 5 TAC Marines.
Yeah.
All right.
But if we go back to Smash Captains, I don't think they're over the top because you can bubble wrap them out. They have to come in the first 3 turns. So if you concentrate on enough chaff, you can keep them back far enough that they can't really do much to you. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So they're really good because they force your opponent to bubble wrap and sit back. But I've never felt like a Smash Captain, I didn't have any choices on it. I always felt like I could feed them a unit, push them back, wait till turn 3, force them to come in, snipe them out. I never saw them as a problem.
I don't see them as a big problem. I see GW taking them the way that they took the Tau Commander. I think it's going to be 0 to 1 per detachment on all the captains, because then it just blanket fixes it across the board. Do I agree with that? Not 100%, but fluff-wise, it does fit. I think that's the way that I see that going.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it's just or in doubt, if they left him alone, I wouldn't complain.
No, I don't have a problem with him. I've never seen him coming down and gone, oh, I can't deal with that in some way, shape, or form.
That's why I like him. It's like you feel like you're playing a game. Whereas I could understand why somebody would be really fed up with a Castellan, because you can hide your character behind a wall in the back corner. It can kill your character turn 1. And then it can literally turn and blow up 2 of your tanks like they're butter, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And then you go to shoot it, and it's got a 3+ invol versus shooting, and you're just like, why are we even playing this game? So I kind of get that.
Yeah, that 3+ in shooting is pretty nasty. Have you guys heard of anyone running that intercept stratagem from the Space Wolves yet with the Castellan?
Haven't heard of anybody trying it yet, because most people expect that to get FAQ'd. But I would expect it. I have an event this weekend. I expect it to happen at least once.
Yeah. Well, Jason and I were talking about that. Jason's one of our players from the area. We were talking about that really briefly, and he said that would be really good with your Castellan. And I said, yeah, but the Smash Captains are better, because not every army has some form of deep strike or that I need to intercept. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, if you're dropping in a horde, I don't really care if I'm shooting it. Whereas the Smash Captains are always good. They get you objectives. They force your opponent to play cagey. And when you have a really good shooting army, the best thing for you is the enemy playing cagey. So like we could see, but yeah, I just think if like you're playing in an ETC setting where you're on a team and you're playing a more defensive list that's designed to maybe hamper some kind of deep striking force, then it's totally valid. But I think in singles you won't get your value out of it.
I agree with you completely on that one. The Space Wolf Codex is definitely interesting. There's a lot of interesting tools there. I just think that in the current meta, it just doesn't fit in well.
Mind you, if they were to change the draft deep strike rules, allow people to drop in turn 1, then it makes them a lot more common. You might see them a lot more. If they keep the draft rules, you'll see them even less. So I think it really depends on what they change in that fact, because, when they changed the way that people infiltrated or deep struck, you saw a lot of those units just disappear. And let's face it, a Smash Captain will be able to drop in and still not get shot because he's a character. He could hide, and then the only thing that you're for sure going to be able to shoot is like big infantry units that drop in, and then a lot of the single units that are really good, like a Castellan, you don't want to shoot like 30 pink horrors that just dropped in. Like you'll take the free shots, but it's not worth the points.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Sorry, Darren. I know it's exciting, but if you had four detachments, if you're allowed 4 detachments, yeah, for sure, I take it in every list.
Support a rune priest, but no, I'm not particularly excited about it. I haven't even written a list to try it out. Yeah, I have, and that's exactly it. You just because there's nothing in the Astra Militarum book. So if we're talking about the Castellan list with that, there's nothing in the Astra Militarum list that's good enough to replace the Blood Angel Smash Captains so that you can free up that to put the Space Wolves in. No, there's no tools.
But I want to be wrong, so email me and tell me if I'm wrong and send me a cool list, and I'll read it and maybe proxy it.
We've been trying to work on a Space Wolf army list with Astra Militarum and the Castellan, and we just haven't been able to come up with anything that jived well.
Mm-hmm.
No fly, man. No fly keyword. That's a big one.
Yeah, that's the big one. Well, in the Space Wolves with the outflanking heavy bolters ignoring, the movement penalty and everything is that nice chaff clearing thing. And to fit that in, you have to clear out so much other stuff. It just didn't work.
Because you're still paying for Marines.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you lose your scouts, so you lose a lot of your board control as well.
Yeah.
Well, you can take Space Wolf scouts, but it's not the same.
Like after the last chapter approved when Space Wolves got the infiltrating stratagem, I ran a few games infiltrating 6 to 9 aggressors, and that clears a lot of chaff, but then they just bite it, right? And that was like X number of points. And
yeah, aggressors disappeared from the meta a few months back, right? As soon as the knights dropped in, the aggressors just disappeared.
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about would it work in a Shadow Sword list where you have an abundance of detachments? Maybe, but then what are you intercepting with your Shadow Swords unless they're all like decked out with sponsons, which I don't think you want to do anyway. So anyway, you got anything else to add, Darren?
No, that was my whole list. Unless you guys had any other units to talk about, or
no, I think the game's in a really good place. I don't think there's much else to really worry about. A few minor tweaks, and the game's gonna be in a really good place. There'll always be something broken. Like apparently, Orcs and Genestealer cults are gonna be insane. They're gonna bring the Horde meta back, but I can't speak to that till they come out. I don't know what they are.
That's good because I still have my 120 Genestealers.
I have you beat. I got 160 of them sitting upstairs all painted, so we're ready to go. But I'm sitting on a lot of Genestealer cult waiting. I've got probably another 60 to 80 guys who I haven't finished assembling because I'm waiting to see what upgrades I need to put on everybody. So,
well, when they first came out back in 7th, they were very popular.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they were fantastic.
Yeah, and then they just were not good in Index.
They were good in Index. They were always solid, especially when the chapter approved came out. It's just that I don't think people own them in the numbers, so they are expensive to buy money wise. The way they're packaged, and there's a lot of characters and units that are only really available in like boxed game sets, and like the one really cool models there. They're not very good in game, but so a lot of people, it's just hard to buy them and get the armies. And when you're looking at doing like a proper Genestealer cult model army is like a couple hundred models. The way in which you have to purchase them, it's just way too much, I think.
Yeah,
but if you're a
like a Patriarch, you have to buy the set of 3 dudes to get a Patriarch.
Yeah.
And the fact that the hybrids came in the box of 5, or you had to buy the overkill box set to get an abundance of them.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
It was kind of nuts. Yeah, I spent far too much money on that. I'll fully admit to it. But I think I bought 19 boxes total of the hybrids.
Well, you hope that when they release the Codex, they're going to rebox a lot of things into more sensible offerings.
Yeah, I think they will. And like as far as like aesthetically, They're one of the most beautiful armies I've seen. The one paint scheme that I really like is when they do the orange kind of jumpsuits and they do like the bone kind of armor, very similar to like Aliens, sort of.
Yeah.
That to me, that's like the sexiest army in the game right now. I think is Genestealer cults, and like when they. Well, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I
was just gonna say, and then that new character that came out, I for the life of me can't remember the name for him. He's just fantastic. The Abomination. I was looking at him actually today on my coffee break. I was like on my phone. I was like, man, that's like the sickest model.
It's a crazy massive hammer.
Well, yeah, I mean, 3 damage minimum, maximum of 6. It's pretty nice. I tried him out in a game already. He was actually very fun. Not going to say he was like super effective. At 80 points, he was a good character.
But but that's the thing is you need a large unit of the brutes to get the +1 strength. But they're the only ones that get the +1 strength from him, right? Is that what he does?
Aberrants. The aberrants are the
aberrants. That's what it is. So you need a really big unit of aberrants, and they're just very expensive points wise and money wise to run across the board and die. So, but other than
you have to cult ambush them in. You have to hope that they come in at a high number. There's a lot of randomness to it currently. Hopefully they do some mitigating of that. Hopefully not to where it was as bad as it was in 7th edition. But,
I remember playing my Genestealers, like. The first game you play, you'll be like 5s and 6s, game over, turn 1. And then you'll be like, next game, 1s and 2s, and literally all your Genestealers doing nothing. Yeah.
You got to be patient with that army. You got to, if you screw up the roll, you got to move them back, use the stratagem, put them back in reserve, come in. You have to be very patient. You have to get the numbers up, and you have to hide. It's and they screwed up because what are the trucks called again?
The Goliaths.
Goliaths, yeah. The name always escapes me. They're like amazing kits, but they're just garbage in game. I think they screwed up with their rules. They should have made them good, like OP good. So everybody bought like 30.
It would be nice if they did that. I did buy 4 of them, so hopefully I can field them. I've tried them out. They're just not effective for their point cost. It's very much like a drop pod in the you took it. It's there. It just doesn't do anything.
Wasn't there a dude who threw a grenade but only 3 inches and the chances are it would hit yourself?
Yeah. That was the old one, right?
Yeah, that was the old rules. Yeah, the demolition charge. Actually, the demolition charge is now actually fairly good, but
with the old template, right? It would just scatter back on yourself because you can only throw it 3 inches.
3 inches and scatters 2d6. Yeah,
that's a great rule.
Anyway, I think that's it for today's show. Thanks for joining us, Brian.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
and if you want to do Shadespire, check out boyggt.com and take a sign up. And if you want to get in on the wait list, get on the wait list. We're going to try and add some more space shortly.
Yeah, I got to get on that. I screwed up. I got to confirm with the wife I can go. I really want to go this year.
Just pop us an email and we'll get you on the list.
Oh, you didn't tell people the date, Brian, so before you go?
Yeah, it's November 9th, 10th, and 11th.
All right, cool. And that is in
Rochester, New York. Yep.
All right, Rochester, New York. There's a lot of Rochesters. I'm going to Rochester, Minneapolis in a couple of weeks. There's a lot of Rochesters.
There is a lot of Rochesters, and it's really nice for the Canadian folks because it's a short ride from the Toronto area down.
Yeah.
If you're coming from Ottawa, it's not too bad either. You can just hop on over by Watertown and come down in. It's a pretty easy drive.
Oh yeah, before we came on the air, there was a bunch of people talking about who's driving with who from Toronto, Ottawa to Du Bois. So yeah, it's easy to get there for sure.
Yeah, and there's a wicked barbecue place. Is it the Dinosaur Bar and Grill?
Dinosaur Barbecue, yeah.
The barbecue, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to go there.
They started in Syracuse and expanded out. They're in New York City, Rochester, somewhere in Maryland now as well. Yeah, they're amazing food.
Yeah,
Their
worth the trip.
Beans are amazingly good.
So have a good one.
All right, same to you guys. Nice being on with you.
Thank you for completing this episode of CanHammer. If you'd like more information on what we do, our YouTube channel, or any events we run, see canhammer.ca. If you would like to donate to the show, you can visit patreon.com/canhammer, where you can donate and subscribe, and you'll get some sick rewards. If donating is not your thing, then just leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. That really helps us get recognized and helps new people find the show. So with that, hopefully we'll see you on the battlefield.